morning, everyone. Welcome back to the Sunday Project. I'm Deb. I'm a gambling addiction therapist and work here at Stop Betting Sports. And most importantly, a fellow human being is passionate about helping people understand gambling harms. Welcome back to Dan Field. He's an adjunct professor at USC. Sorry to show you up again, Dan, but you are a fine educator and clinician. And we all love working with you, Dan. Dan has spent many years helping individuals and family affected by gambling harms, dedicating his career to improving treatment, education, and awareness. I'd like to welcome back Mr. Bob G. Never fails to bring a smile to my face, brings insight and honesty and wisdom and passion to our conversations. And Bob generously gave us this amazing phrase, are you a fan or a customer? And a huge welcome back to Jared, actor, comedian, former professional football player, and just a real person, working with us and working here at SBS, talking about gambling harms, raising awareness, and also, being honest about his own journey with gambling recovery himself. Welcome back again, Yiz Solomon joins us to share his own lived experience. So good to see you, Yiz, and has shares his lived experience and has a ton of actual insight and information on many areas of gambling harms as well himself, and introducing a very surprise last minute very special guest, Mr. Ted Hartwell. He is a nationally recognized advocate, researcher, and educator based in Las Vegas. He is also someone who has been in long-term recovery from gambling disorder himself, spent many years promoting awareness and prevention and treatment through his work with the Nevada Council on Problem Gambling. Welcome today, Ted. Thank you for joining us. Okay, and so for everyone joining us here today, if it's your first Sunday or your 15th, thanks for being here. We know Sundays can be difficult, but we love to have you back. And I actually had a 19-year-old, I think he's in here in the audience, reach out to me the other day to tell us that this was helping him not gamble. And that just means the world to us. That's why we're here. We're here for you. We're here to raise awareness and educate and motivate you not to gamble, because you absolutely can not gamble and stop gambling. You just need a little bit of willpower. Okay, so for everyone joining us here, I'd like to start off with a discussion. We've got a few today that we want to have. One that I'd like to bring to the table. So the NCAA, has anyone got anything to talk about with this topic? Let me know. The decision to partner with Genius Sports to monetize and distribute official data. So for those of you who don't know, the NCAA stands for the National Collegiate of Athletic Association, right? I'll say that again, the National Collegiate Athletic Association. It's the organization in the states that oversees and regulates sports college books, right? And they have set the rules and standards for student athletes, coordinate championships, and aim to balance academics, athletics, and student well-being across sports programs. So what's happened is they've partnered with a company called Genius Sports, and Genius Sports is a data and technology provider that supplies official sports data and things like game stats and play-by-play updates to sport books and other betting operators. So they're giving data, right? So and this is causing some upheaval and some discomfort with people like us who are in raising awareness, talking about harms, and really. I think the deeper conversation to have really is about the integrity of sports, what it's doing to sports, and normalizing gambling with sports, right? So, question, can they really protect student athletes while simultaneously profiting from the betting industry? And I'll put that back to my group here. Anyone got any comments or thoughts about that in the group here today? And I'm going to I'm going to ask Mr. Hartwell to take himself off mute and share his thoughts on that topic.
Sure. Yeah. So I think this partnership struck a lot of us the wrong way when we heard about it. I guess one of the most important things about that partnership is that the sports books that are allowed to have access to that data must also guarantee that they are not offering proposition wagerings on individual players. So that is maybe the only good thing that I see about the relationship. It is rolling back the potential harms, I think, to both the individuals as well as that integrity part of it, because I think that is, I think the proposition wagers are where the largest potential for both integrity and player health issues are going to happen. So in that sense, maybe it helps protect folks, but your larger operators like your DraftKings and folks like that have chosen not to use that because they would prefer to profit off of the proposition wagers, right? So it's a complicated issue and kind of a double-edged sword in a lot of areas, but it's disappointing that we can't achieve that same result without an actual partnership happening, I think, between the folks gathering the data or profiting from the sports betting and that organization. That I think that would be ideal.
What are your thoughts on it, Dan?
I'm just concerned when I hear the word partnership. People partner to profit. They partner to make money. And college age kids, 18 to 25, are really vulnerable to develop gambling disorders. So, there's a partnership, NCAA and Genius Sports. It's normalizing gambling. You're seeing the logo of Genius Sports around and someone's making money. They're not partnering to just, hang out and you're my partner and let's go for a walk together. This is about making money, and it's, very risky in that, people can develop a gambling disorder really quickly, during the course of a single basketball season, or even, a couple weekends of watching and betting on sports. You can, with a big win, it can capture your information, your imagination, and now you're into it. And it's, you see the Genius Sports sign on campus, and it's going on in frat houses, and by the end of the season, you're in very deep. And so to me, it's very concerning, just these partnerships between individual colleges and casinos, and now the NCAA and Genius Sports. So I give it a thumbs down.
Right, a good thumbs down, and please feel welcome to put that thumbs down on your screen. In terms of data, we talk about, you know, I don't know if you guys have spoken about this before. I've certainly heard conversations about the value of data now, and that data is being brought and used, with organizations and businesses to capitalize and monetize on us, right? For monitoring our behaviors. I mean, there's AI in the sports betting apps, that focuses on who you are, how you gamble, and uses that against you. But what problems are going to come up? Like, we've got the NCAA selling the data of the games that are won or lost and the data on the athletes directly to the sports books, right? So when we think about the layers of that, right, and what impact that's going to have on sports itself, like what does that do to you as an athlete, knowing that marriage now, right, has happened, and that this really is becoming normalized. It's like I can't quite articulate it as best as I want right now because it is such a concern. Bob, you've got something.
The NCAA, their role traditionally, they were the, of the athletic fabric of collegiate, competition. And their role has completely changed now that there's telephone numbers regarding money about the outcome. And, they've destroyed the fabric of athletic competition by allowing people to bet on an individual. So you could bet Penn State, to win the game, but you lose $4,000 betting on the quarterback because he didn't have 100 yards or whatever, They've changed the whole game. I have a great NCAA story that goes back many, many years. When I was gambling, New Mexico State was playing Drake. It's a basketball game. I don't even know where Drake or New Mexico State was. I was living in Pennsylvania. The bottom line, New Mexico State had a home winning streak of like 70 games, and Drake had a losing streak, road losing streak of like 90 games. So we loaded up on New Mexico State, and I'm in Pennsylvania waiting for the score. This is before cells or anything, calling a radio station in Las Cruces, New Mexico. Hey, I need the score. And the guy goes, "Didn't you hear what happened?" That's the first thing the guy said. "Didn't you hear what happened?" What happened was the NCAA came into the locker room before the game and suspended like the 7-6 center and the guard for recruiting violations. They were monitoring recruiting violations. That's the bottom line. Their role has changed now, and there's so much money involved. Anyway, that's my NCAA story.
I got Yiz and Jared bursting at the seams. Jared.
Yeah, I think it's one of the most dangerous things is for the NCAA to start getting in bed with gambling companies. If anything, they should be going against it. The NFL is 12 games a week, kind of regulated with a bunch of NFL players that are making millions, so it doesn't entice them. I believe that it's very dangerous. They already just one of the quarterbacks, the star quarterback for Texas Tech, just they put him back in school after he's been caught with over 30,000 bets that he made, including college football games. So it seems like they're diving into gambling. And as Dan said, like I think the most dangerous person is college kids with the gambling phone in their fandom. It is probably the highest rate for people to become gambling addictions. So with the NCAA partnering with gambling companies to start bringing this readily more available is the opposite thing. I think because everybody's making so much money from gambling, from governments and NFL companies and gambling companies, they're all in bet. But I think the NCAA is the domino that creates the biggest problems since it's 1,000 games. There's basketball games every night. There's football games by the tunes of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, all the way through Saturday. And I just think if they start getting on, I want this money from gambling in, and they start enticing people to gamble, it's the Pandora's box of creating gambling addiction.
Yiz. And then I'm gonna there's a question in the audience that I'm gonna go to, but Yiz, go.
Yeah, thank you. Um, I actually don't know too much about the Genius Sports, but in order to understand, I think the entire landscape, we got to take a step back. And by taking a step back is really looking at the last few years, there was an inflection point with the NCAA. And it really has to do with NIL. NIL stands for the name, the the image and likeliness of a player. So for the existence of collegiate sports, athletes couldn't get paid for their image or likeliness. Now, on the contrary, they're getting paid to stay in college. So what you're seeing now is the NCAA student athletes for its lifetime has always been student athlete, but now you're getting more of the athlete, and they're getting direct contributions. And what you're seeing is this gap where the wealthier schools, think Alabama, Ohio State, they're now getting direct funding from private individuals, private equities, et cetera, because they're seeing a profit. So I think you're seeing kind of this shift overall in the NCAA, and you're seeing now that that's directly moving into gambling. Once kind of the red tape is out and it becomes a business, things tend to snowball. That's what I fear is going to happen. So that's, I think, what we're seeing regards to the NCAA.
I'm going to take a question from and if it's okay, Miss the person who raised their hand, can you type your question, because we don't generally take questions over the mic. Okay. Ted, in terms of impact though, where if once, as you were saying, like the red tape being lifted and how this is going to just just spiral out of control in a way with, it just everything, it's a mesh now of marriages between the NCAA and Sports Genius, and now we've got, I will touch on this subject slightly now and I go back, but the National Council and Cowsheet, sorry, nearly threw up in my hands. But Ted, where do you think this is going to go, and how do you think this is going to affect what we think about sports and how it's going to affect the athletes?
Well, I think to piggyback on what Dan already said about the normalization aspect, this is something that has been happening for some time, right? And ever since the overturning of PASPA, especially. And I think we need to remind ourselves that prior to kind of the repeal of the Professional and Amateur Sports Protection Act, the NCAA, all of the professional sports leagues were strongly against any type of betting on sports, including in the regulated industry, right? Much less illegal sports. It's one of the reasons Las Vegas didn't have a top tier sports team for a very, very long time, were concerns over the betting angle. And this is just kind of unfortunately an almost natural progression of what's happened. As soon as that overturned, you saw professional leagues in very short order with dollar signs in their eyes, looking at how they could benefit personally from sponsorships and other things. And the NCAA held out a little longer than some of those organizations, but ultimately, I think fell into the fire. So it's just and also just Jared mentioned the Sorsby issue. So I'm a two-time Texas Tech graduate. I am a fanatic when it comes to my Texas Tech Red Raiders. I have season tickets to the football team, and it has been so personally disappointing to see. I mean, the great thing is, he got some help, supposedly, right? And I think a lot of us who have been in the midst of a gambling disorder often find our way there because we are finally found out by somebody in a way that impacts our life pretty significantly. In my case, it was the potential of losing my family that finally woke me up, right? And so, not unusual that he would be kind of both outed and seek help, but the way it's come out since that point in time is it really seems that all of the parties involved got together just to figure out what's a way we can do, run through the legal gauntlet here and have him come out and still be able to play most of the season, under appeal until it's found out. And the precedent that sets for other athletes is just awful. It's like means I can go against what I know is this NCAA policy and still come out okay at the end. I would love to see Sorsby in his recovery kind of take that responsibility and say, I'm going to take off a year. I'm going to finish my education. He could still be a very viable pro prospect. And I think the maturity of that would show, for example, in taking that responsibility would even raise his value at the NFL level, because I think otherwise it's like, wow, do we want to take a chance on this guy with this history already? So there's so many different pieces to this, the name, image, likeness, the transfer portal, the gambling aspects. It's all very much connected, and it's awful. Yeah.
There
But
was a
Jared,
time,
Jared,
I'm
no,
sorry. Can I
no, go,
go?
go, Bob.
There, there was a time, a long, long time ago, like the Maloof brothers owned the Sacramento Kings, and you couldn't bet the Sacramento or whatever team they owned. You couldn't bet them. And I also think UNLV, they were not allowed to be on the board in Vegas either. And that's all disappeared.
For the
You know,
audience UNLV, please just educate on the abbreviations.
oh, the University of Nevada.
Yeah.
There's a school in Nevada, that has sports programs, but you were not allowed to bet them in the casinos and the sports books in Vegas because the underhand of, fixed games and so forth has changed.
Yeah. To go back to the Sorsby thing, I'm a former athlete. I went to University of Miami. I played football. I understand the competitiveness. When I played, luckily enough, because I am a gambling addict and at heart, that's the competition in me. It wasn't rapidly available. It wasn't something you could do easily. But now that's not the case. And I think that the fact that they got kind of the top guy gambling. And I'm not trying to punish him. He's going through recovery. He's me, he's us. But I think that they had a chance to basically put a hammer on what the consequence of this, and they went the opposite route. He's definitely not the only one gambling. I guarantee you that he's the one that got caught. But there's hundreds of thousands of kids that play for these programs, and if they get caught in gambling addictions, and who knows, they can be affecting the outcome of games because that's what gambling will do. You'll become an immoral person based on your addiction. And I just think that it's an opportunity where now are they going to punish the second person after not letting the first one go? And the reason why is money in itself. Is Texas Tech has a lot of people, and the people who let them free were Texas Tech fans and they want to see him win. And I'm a Miami Hurricane. I'm not saying anyone on my team is doing that, but I guarantee you, if it's going to affect us winning, they're going to do whatever can to keep him on the field. So I just think it's a bad precedence for potential game fixing. It's a bad precedence for kids who are doing this to think it's relatively okay and the consequences isn't there. And so I just think for the NCAA to kind of let their guards down and just basically, for what we know is a pandemic of gambling addicts coming, to basically take the light in and go for profit and TV deals and excitement of the game rather than trying to create a boundary of keeping the sport safe.
And also in terms of just getting him well, if the therapy is part of the deal, so to speak, that he'll go to GA meetings or he'll talk to someone like Dan or whatever, and that's just it's embedded in this. Well, this is the solution to this very complex problem of his gambling disorder. Then A, he doesn't really feel the consequences of the gambling disorder because he's doing a few groups here and there, and it's a slap on the wrist and he doesn't hit bottom or the consequence. But B, just the value of the therapy and the context in which it starts is just not helpful for him to overcome addiction. When people come in and it's the mother that is insisting that they come into treatment, but their heart isn't in it, it's heavy lifting for a therapist to try to get them to see the importance of this for themselves and not to do it to appease a family member. And so it's problematic from that point of view too.
Just had a comment from the chat. The whole situation is quite unfortunate and tokensome. Yes, we have had this person on as a guest speaker before. Thanks, Abdullah. Yes, it is. And what in terms of like, we're here to educate, right? So how important do you think this is? And this is to the group here, like that we are ed doing our best to educate young men, because we're talking about the majority of young male population who are sports betting. What is the importance of educating them about all of these aspects, about all of these current, marriages between NCAA and the sports genius sports books, and what impact do you think that will have on a young person in terms of their choice to gamble or not?
So I guess I'll chime in here. This
Yeah.
is this is a drum I've been beating for so very long. First of all, we need to recognize that we need to have this awareness and education long before the collegiate ranks, right? Honestly, long before high school, we need to start talking about this as soon as we're talking about addiction of any kind, right? With substances, and when we talk about cigarettes and alcohol and these things. I remember from fifth grade growing up in Texas discussing addiction for the first time, that these are products that are potentially addictive. Here's what can happen to your life, and there are places to go to get help, right? We need to instill that awareness from a very young age so that by the time they're getting to high school, especially where there's already tons of betting going on, especially among the adolescent males and on sports and within the athletes, to know why it's a risky behavior, what the impact can be, but also normalize asking for help, right? Reaching out in any area of your life where you're struggling, not just in gambling, but anything else. And I created a program in Nevada to do just that at the high school level, focused on student athletes, but also just general awareness. Because until we get that conversation into the schools, right, as a normal part of the education, I think we're going to continue to see this in a much bigger way than we otherwise are.
And part of it is to convey to people that it's not a powder, it's not rock cocaine, it's not alcohol, it's not something you can see, touch, or feel, but this behavior that is celebrated everywhere on sports media is in fact incredibly toxic, dangerous to your mental health. Your financial health is the obvious connection, but that it destroys lives. People start thinking about ending their lives. Some people do end their lives over this, that this is no joke. It's a product that's being sold to you, and it's as dangerous as cigarettes, cocaine, any of it, in my opinion, having treated both substances and gambling.
Do you think that I kind of wonder that like it's not more or less just education. I mean, it's almost like if you put a casino with slot machines and sports bet in the middle of a campus and you put signs out saying this could be dangerous, I don't think it would stop many people from going in there. I think unless it's like a universal, like almost to a point of like, hey, this is a gambling safe zone. We don't do that just because I feel like just telling people it's bad is not something that ever worked with me as a kid, and I don't think it works with most kids, you know? And so I just feel like people don't fully understand the consequence of it until it's too late. And I don't know the solution, but I feel like we're doing a good job of saying, hey, this could be a problem, but I don't think it's 10% of what needs to be done to kind of prevent people from becoming gambling addicts.
Yeah, no, I think Jared's absolutely right. And, I always go in on these conversations without any judgment, knowing a lot of these kids are already gambling. The last thing I'm going to say is just say no, because you're absolutely right. That's going to make me want to do it more, right, as an adolescent at that age. So it's very non-judgmental in the way that I talk about it, at least, and because I've been doing this since I was 10, right? So I grew up doing it as a young athlete myself, and so it's more about, I think, just building awareness that this is what can happen, but there's places to go to get help, right? And normalizing that help seeking, because we know that education doesn't prevent everyone from developing a substance addiction, right? Or addiction to nicotine, but at least it gives everyone the context from a very young age to recognize kind of what's happening when you're in the midst of it, and it may normalize, I think, help seeking at least earlier than it might have otherwise.
The perception of consequences are related to the person's age are dramatically different. When I was, 14, I didn't give a crap about consequences. I didn't even know what the word consequences meant. But as you get older, you find out really that's what they need to do. There's advertising all the glory and the glitter, and there's no promotion about the consequences.
I think that people can relate to finishing college without student debt, and people can relate to hitting 30 and having enough money to put a down payment on a house, or, putting some basic financial goals at the end of the line. And that these wealth destroying products, these gambling products are a hindrance. It's not going to happen. If you want to be able to put money on a house, if you want a better financial life, if you don't want just student debt and gambling debt, as many people have, to just convey it. Like, if this is what you want, then gamble, because that's what happens. And if you want to stop, you're probably going to need to talk about it. You can't have a conversation in your head. There are lots of people, like on the Sunday Project and elsewhere, that are trying to stop too and are stopping, and their lives are better, you know.
With a comment from a man in the chat, agreed, providing educational data cannot compete with the immense dopamine trigger responses. Right. So we do have to, and you would know about this, Ted, as you went in head first into schools. It's tough. They're a tough crowd. The youth are a tough crowd. Um, if you say don't, what do they want to do? They want to do it, right? As we were once there. So how do you reach the youth? Well, um, you know, there are other ways. What this our generation are very, very intelligent and have advantages that we didn't have when we were back in their age. We didn't have the tech that they have now. So they are a tough crowd for us, I think, especially because of that alone. But they do want to know how I think, and if I might phrase it like this, not to be idiots, right? So, like, they do want to know about the real probabilities of, if you put up the math, like what the real probabilities of somebody who's going to win, and you show them the truth and the math behind the sports books, and the likeliness of you winning this bet, and what else you could be doing with your money, the likeliness that you will lose, then you're starting to get somewhere, right? Like, the youth need to be educated on probability, math, other things you can do with your money, how to really grow your money. And I think that really gets their attention because they don't have the same, you know, understanding of consequences and loss and repercussions and things that somebody who's been gambling or in their 40s have when they're, having to face a divorce because they've been in a gambling addiction and it's got too far. So it is a tough crowd though. Ted, did you want to say anything about that? Because you've been in schools trying to talk to the youth.
One of the things I like to talk about is how much more I enjoy sports. Now that I don't place bets on them, I mean, just to enjoy the game again. I have my teams, to agonize along with those wins and losses and the team members. Yeah, it's still emotionally agonizing, but it's like, completely different than having skin in the game. Maybe not even on your own team. I remember when I used to sometimes, I would hedge my bets in the sense that I might bet against the team. So, if they lost, I would have this financial win, but if they won, I would have the emotional win of my team winning. Just really, silly stuff, not doing any in-depth research. I was never really, sports betting was never my primary gambling, but it was always there in the side as part of it. So, talking about I think the benefits also, what they've been to me of stopping gambling, the sleep hygiene, I think, is one topic that is really under talked about, because we know sleep hygiene is related to so many other physical and mental health issues. And I hear so many stories anecdotally about, keeping the phone on the nightstand and every hour waking up to check the bets and maybe play some more on the other side of the world, right? And just what that does to your whole brain chemistry and your ability to function the following day, I think is a little bit understated.
Yeah, Dan, you talk about
Mm.
that group, right? In treatment, sleep hygiene's the big three.
Yeah, and it's the toughest nut to crack. I mean, we talk a lot about exercise and we share recipes in the group, and the importance of managing money and managing the kitchen are really connected. But sleep is this beast that is really hard if you are, primed to gamble, to just put the phone down, not gamble, and then just get on a regular sleep cycle. But super, it's really, really important, you know.
I just wanted to say to our audience, got some really good comments in the chat here. When we designed this, we set it up so that we didn't have people just speaking, and that was to keep everybody safe, um, because we didn't want anyone sort of triggering anybody, right? As you will, a lot of people in the audience, I think, probably know, it appears we have some advocates in our audience today. Lots of interesting comments. Um, so I would like to argue that young kids are more likely to gamble because they feel the traditional means of obtaining wealth is much more difficult and out of reach. Yes, there is a pressure on young men nationally to make money fast. Those two things. Money is important, got to make it fast, big money. Why invest in the market that earns on average 9% per year? Boring, when you can double your money betting on a 2 hour game, right? Exactly. Very appealing to you. I don't know if the science supports it, but as a Gen Z millennial myself, this is how I see it. Yes, and we need people like you coming on here to talk as a young man. As someone said before, another person here said the testimonies of young individuals who are in recovery can have a powerful effect on peers within the same age group, peer to peer. So we want more young men talking to young men about the impact of gambling that it's had on their lives. But we also want young men that are gambling, that are questioning it, that are confused. To ask these questions, say, well, why should we not gamble when the industry are encouraging it and saying we're going to win this and we're going to win that, and they're giving us $500 to go and get more. So I see that. Please stop me because there's more here. So if you've got any
Well,
comments, jump in.
I think one of the biggest things that was said is that kids are losing hope and how to make money and means, and so gambling seems as a way out. One of the things about gambling, for some reason, people love to share when they win. They never tell people when they lose. And so there's this common conception that people are making money from gambling. You even said it best. If we revealed the magic trick that, hey, these casinos are making all the money, no one's really making money. And even me, like I'm in recovery, but I hate people knowing that. I hate people like it's a stigma to telling people you have a gambling addiction. It's the biggest thing in the world. You're like, look at this 5K parlay I hit. And so I think that if people started to tell people this isn't a way either, It might maybe going to college and becoming a doctor isn't as popular as it used to be, but I can guarantee you putting parlays in every day or gambling is not going to get you wealth either. And so I just, maybe it's not the right door, but it's definitely the wrong door.
Right. Dan.
I mean, I think that, making gambling recovery cool again has to do with doing something really good for your friend. And when you pull your friend out of an activity that is going to impoverish him, there's something really tangible about that. It's one of the reasons I was attracted to becoming a gambling therapist because I am interested in money and the psychology of money. And, for a 20-year-old that's lifted out of gambling addiction, that's millions of dollars that that person and his family has. I mean, that's meaningful. That's real substance. Money is substance. So that's appealing to me. So if you care about your brother, if you care about your community, you're going to join this fight and this movement to pull your brother and your sister and your family out of something that's going to impoverish them. You have a better life, you have more time, and you have more money. That's something we talk about in the groups too. Time and money, the most valuable commodities. When you get out of a gambling addiction, you have a lot more of both.
I've just seen this is very interesting this way. So, and a very important point, uh, of what we're up against. So here's a comment here. Also, the influence of, oh no, I would come to that second. When I speak on college campuses, I will be reaching out to you, sir. When I speak on college campuses, often students will say, I don't gamble, I just bet on sports. Often, perspective amongst many students is gambling is an investment. Very cool and sexy. Moreover, plenty of college students on campuses are working for bookies. This is what we are against. This is the fight.
Yiz, I'm curious your take
Yeah.
on some of this conversation.
Yeah, I think all these are incredible points and true. I think from experience and just on the whole misconception of sports betting versus gambling. I mean, you see that directly. And I often talk about this. If you go to Robinhood, right, which is supposed to be a brokerage account, the first few screens are trade on sports. And as you can see, they use the word trade, which is synonymous with investing versus bet, even though the outcome is the same as betting. So that is materially affecting the psychology of young kids, which they think if they're just sports betting, they're not gambling, right? Everyone's doing it anyway in my fraternity. The games are on. So, what's the big deal? And I think it's tough because when you're in college, I'm sure we can relate to this. There's a lot of peer pressure. There's going with the norm. It's hard we don't have that level of maturity yet, the level of consciousness to really understand our actions. We're associated with drinking, partying, dopamine. So it's really hard to really get a sense of the addiction. And you kind of just sweep it under the rug. I see it, sports gambling, or gambling in general, as like this maturity, coming to a place which what we talk about is getting your life back, whether that be, sleep, relationships, career. But I'm afraid that you only get to that point once you're mature enough to really understand. And I think that what we're going up against is way too big when you're dealing with colleges, just because of the atmosphere.
And the majority of people that are gambling are doing it, it's hard for me to say responsibly, but they're doing it without really, really terrible consequences. Just like a lot of people that abuse cocaine, most do it without horrible consequences. So when you're around a frat house with 25 people gambling, a lot of them are just, they'll place a bet. They're not thinking about it that much. It's very much under control. Like a lot of people that are drinking, it's under control. But then there are those that know deep down, at the end of the night, they're alone with their phone and they're hiding their gambling and the debt is accumulating and there's a situation that is boiling up. And they may look to the people that are gambling responsibly or without consequences, and they can't see that they are not like them. Everyone's gambling, but you, sir, are the one with the problem. You're the one that is missing classes, dropping out of school, or just the sleep is completely whacked, and now you're abusing Adderall or Xanax or whatever the situation may be. And people, need to not feel ashamed about saying this is a problem. There's great resources that are out there, and there are communities that are developing that are going to help lift you out of that. But it's it's hard to admit that at age 20, hard to admit that you have an addiction.
This is a good moment to spend 20, 30 seconds down on how do you know if you've got a problem with gambling addiction?
That you've made some pacts or contracts with yourself that you have not lived up to, that you're chasing your losses. I think that's just the classic one. If you're gambling more money than you intended to, but you're still in action, or that you really notice that there's a euphoric high, like, wow, I really like this activity. This is really fun. I'm thinking about it. I can't wait till I'm doing it again. That you're on a run, and if you're winning, that a run runs out, and so there are lots of there are lots of ways to realize that you have a gambling addiction. you
If
know
you can't stop, if you can't put it down, if you can't stop thinking about it, if you're lying, if you've lied at all.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
Jared?
I think the big problem with that is I feel like because it's such a silent disorder that you can get, oftentimes by the time anyone could even try to help you or even give it to you, it's too late. By the time they notice you have a gambling problem, you are too deep in a gambling problem. And if you do have a gambling problem, I would say don't get to the bottom before you try to stop it, which is most people. This is one of the few addictions that sometimes the solutions, it feels like the problem could be the solution, and that's not the case in this at all. And so, yeah, I mean, as a person who hit the bottom, and that seems to be the only way to really start getting help, and hopefully find a solution where people can, midway through start notifying, hey, this is potential gambling addiction, and they can stop there. But if you sense it in yourself, and you're the only person that can stop it, please seek help.
Real-time consequences are not spoken about. I said that earlier, am I saying, are you a fan or you're a customer? That's the bottom line. I mean, a live example was this week, this New York Knicks NBA championship, if I can say. The line was 1.5. The psychology of these gambling, they post these numbers. They are really professionally phenomenal at these numbers. And a kid looks at that 1.5. All we have to do is win the game. That's all we have to do is win. Well, that's not true. You have to win by 2 points. So, once again, people are dancing in the streets in New York because the Knicks win. But a significant amount of that population has nothing to dance about because they only won by one, not 1.5. And those are the lessons, that those are hard learned lessons.
It was a big week this week, right? In the news with Jared.
There's a lot of people that are becoming addicted to gambling right now in New York City. That was a place where it was legal. I've been seeing on Instagram, they've been partying all day, people showing how much they made. I think I but it didn't pay attention to serious because gambling has made me not enjoy sports as much. But apparently every game there was a point where the team that won, the Knicks, were down by 15 plus points. And so these major swings where people are winning these bets, and it's creating massive amount of dopamine, and it's scary that I just the city made it legal, and I would imagine from my experience, and I don't think everybody's prone to it. There's a lot of people that think this is going to happen every time, and they're becoming addicts in real time right now.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like the elation, if your team wins and it's a terrific series and you're winning money and you're walking on air and having the time of your life with your friends and the city is electric, that's the worst thing that could happen to a gambling addict, someone developing gambling disorder. So you're exactly right. People are actively becoming addicted right now, the day after the Knicks' big win.
Did you guys see the advert this week? Is it FanDuel? And the advert is take a pause. Think about your play. Think about your gambling and then make a really good plan. Basically, that's the advert. So it's take a pause, and they use that language, which for anyone who's listening, a lot of you will know that the take a pause is used in treatment. Take a pause is being used currently in the council to encourage people to pause. And I just think it's, like I have no words, but yeah, the just the messaging there. Okay, guys, get real about this. Strategize on your gambling and your play with sports betting from, believe, and forgive me if I'm wrong, but it's FanDuel. It's the advert.
Do they
Yeah.
have the ability? They have the data. Like, if anyone knows who's possibly addicted or prone to being addicted to gambling, it's them. They know it first, the people who are taking the bets. Do they? I mean, they want all the data from all these sports leagues. Do they pass that data to the conventions you guys go to show like this is where areas a high percentage of people who are placing 40 bets within 2 hour radio radius? I mean, 2 hour window.
That data has, I mean, I don't have access to it. It's generally not presented. There's a lot of information about typical gambling profiles, and like the type of college student that gambles, one recreationally and one, who is constantly in action. But as a clinician, I haven't sought that data, and it hasn't been presented to me at a lot of these conferences.
So we've got when discussing gambling addiction amongst college students, it's important to consider the role of parental relationships. Very. Thank you. Thank you, sir. And early exposure. Many young people grow up seeing parents or relatives gamble, being taken to horse races. We've got, I'm coming to you, Bob, or hearing gambling discussed casually at home. Those experiences can normalize gambling before students even get to college. I also think prediction markets need more attention because they appear to be increasingly appealing to young people and may create new pathways into gambling-like behavior. Yeah, I'm exploding with thoughts myself, but I want to put it to the group. What do you think, Bob? Exposure, parents normalizing gambling in your household. You see dad win in a casino or on the track. Dad explodes with happiness. Yeah, it's that moment. As a child, you look up, oh, dad's happy. This is good. This is safe. And that hard wiring is there and it's deep. And that's the idea that it sets, right? Bob?
No, kids, a lot of parents they're allowing their kids to continue. They're giving them money. Hey, they're bailing them out, whatever it might be. I remember when my parents said, "Okay, son, no more money." And I said, well, "Don't you love me? If you loved me, you'd give me more money." But I go back to the schools. They don't teach anything about money in school. My kids are 25 and 27. They grew up, thank God they don't gamble, but nobody ever in school, they don't talk about this is how you operate a checking account. And and they don't talk about risk. It starts in the beginning. You got to teach people the value of a dollar and so forth. It didn't mean anything to me, and it was just easy, fast money.
You're
I
right.
always
There's
talk.
there's a comment in here, Bob, from a lady. I was going to come to that about finances and teaching finances, but I just want to really home in on that thing about parents, because the environment that the kids grow up in is extremely influential in how they develop any addiction, right? Dan, did you want to say something, or
Yeah,
Ted?
I mean, it's easier to think about in terms of alcohol, if a kid sees mom and dad drinking wine excessively on Friday and Saturday night, the kid learns to drink excessively on Friday and Saturday night, or mom unwinds when she has a glass of wine. Well, that tells me whether it's wine or water, the placebo effect, that there's something about this wine that makes everyone relax. But similarly, like if there's a big win at the horse race or at the track and dad's mood is changed, or worse, I'm at the track with him and it was so much fun and dad peels off 100 and gives it to me after a win, that is like exposing them to drugs and alcohol. That experience we know can shape the brain for certain people with the genetic predisposition for gambling disorder. So it's bad. And it's also important in treatment as the young person is trying to get well, that the parents fess up a little bit, that there's shared culpability in the development of a gambling disorder. They saw it in the house, it was normalized, there were these heightened experiences. some parents will insist that, I can gamble responsibly, or, I do it differently. I don't know why my son developed this thing. Yes, his gambling is worse, but it's a family systems issue. And a lot of gamblers just think, well, I did this to myself. No one forced me to gamble, but there's a lot of mitigating circumstances to it.
And this is why this is such a huge concern. And Bob, I'm going to come back to what you were saying earlier about financial education. That's been in my brain forever. But the 10 years ago, the NCAA were against gambling, right? They were against it. Okay. 10 years from now, we're going to have 6-year-olds running around, and our 10-year-olds now will then be 20 years old, right? This would have been going on for 10 years, this affiliation, yeah, with data being given to the industry because we want the industry to know about the behavior of our teams, everything. And then and Kalshi's just going to be in every living room. And you've seen the Kalshi adverts are getting worse because someone's sitting in a dentist chair with having a root canal and he's just saying the word Kalshi. Kalshi aren't even trying to advertise. They're just putting a man half saying the word. That's their advert. Like Kalshi don't even have to try, right? This is how insidious gambling is becoming over the nation, like the idea, the normalization, right? So when we talk about our kids being affected in a household by a parent gambling, that's all it took for a child to develop a disorder. What are we up against with an industry that are marrying, right? The people on our side of the fence trying to advocate. What are we looking at here? What message are we giving to kids?
You know,
And where do we go with that?
if I could jump in, because all of your comments just now, as well as Dan's, are my situation exactly. Moving to live in my father's household at the age of 10, where gambling was very normalized in that family, from scratch offs to going to the racetrack, and my father teaching me how to play poker by the time I was a teenager. And it was a big ego trip for me as an adolescent to be included with these other men that were 2, 3, 4 times my age in this activity. So it was a big bonding exercise for me and my father. And if we're not, if we're not educating the next generation of parents, we're going to see this problem perpetuated, because parents right now are pretty ill-equipped to have the conversation with their kids when those ads pop up before, during, every single game on TV now, as to why this is an adult activity and why that behavior should be delayed until you're an adult. In my household, one of those advertisements absolutely would have resulted in a bet between me and my dad in that moment. Saw nothing wrong with it, and it was a way for him to bond with me. So that's the other aspect of the education piece that I think gets left out a lot, is that parental connection and kind of educating that next generation of parents, because it's pretty hard to reach the current generation of parents, right?
And I personally don't feel it's too big an ask if your kid is struggling with gambling and really going through it, to parents to quit gambling too. I just think it just sends the right message. Like, listen, son, we're in this together, and wow, I'm not gambling too. And yeah, let's do this together. I think it's the right move for parents, and not that he has the problem and I can do it responsibly. I don't know. That bugs me a little, I guess.
Love it.
It's how to, we're trying to redesign human behavior, which is can't be redesigned. They put on a cigarette pack, these things will kill you, and
Right.
people are lined up to buy them. It's just the nature of humans. Gambling is dangerous and it's going to eventually wipe you out, and that's the lesson that needs to be taught.
Got a comment in the chat. My dad was a horse race gambler. I grew up at the racetrack. He gave me money to bet, and I could not even reach the counter to play my bet. I was 8, saying, "I'll take the 347 box to 7 to win." Eventually, I learned to keep the money my dad gave me and not gamble it. Ted?
Mm.
Here's a great story. This guy in GA, a beautiful man, he was lying, and he took his daughter. He told his wife he was taking his daughter to the zoo, but they went to the racetrack. And when she came home, they said, "Honey, how was the zoo?" And she said, "Mom, it was great, but all they had there was horses."
But it's
Yeah.
that memory that you have of being with your mum or your dad and what they were doing and how that manifested in you and how that, stays with you. But and this is from studies, like that moment that they rejoice and laugh and they win, that stays with you. That's impactful to a child. This is good, this is safe, this is what I should do. Those are the messages. So, but yeah, educating parents, how can we do it? What are we going to do at SBS? We're going to go out on the street. We're going to stand outside of schools. I've got a big mouth. I come from East London. Say what I want, and I'm just gonna just be me. And anyone who wants to join, let me know. It's really important that we get the message across. Even if you're around people and you're hearing a conversation, chip into that conversation. Just say, hey, it's really important that we talk to our kids about what this thing really is, and what it's doing. We're about 20 years away, I think, from, I mean, how long did it take for the nicotine industry to have to slap those messages on those packets? It was 20, 30 years in when people started developing cancer. This is similar to it. This is similar to it because it erodes households, and it sucks the soul. I like to say that in treatment, it sucks the soul out of a person who really gets deep in a problem, in the gambling addiction. The personality changes, depression becomes severe, suicidal ideations, not wanting to do anything else other than gambling. And us as therapists, really, we see that a lot. So I say it's like the Dementors from Harry Potter, like it sucks the soul out of a person. It's
The
quite.
methods have changed, but the end result is exactly the same. That's
Mm.
the bottom line. Like I was phenomenal at prediction markets, at predicting outcomes. Now the 100% guaranteed prediction is if you don't bet, you're a winner.
I wonder how
Dan,
many of the. Go ahead.
go Jared, go Jared, go Jared.
No, I
Listen.
was just saying, like, obviously, I think it's a different world. Like, parents, like, my mom was a slot machine gambler, still is a slot machine gambler. I seen gambling very early. I gamble on my phone. Sports betting was my thing where, like, if my daughter wanted to bond with me, that's when I was in it. I'd be so non-present. She would have to pick it up to even get that moment with me. And I just wonder how much, like you were saying, nicotine took 30 years before they started changing it. Thing is, you could still probably be a great parent while smoking cigarettes. If you have a gambling addiction, you're not present. You're losing the family's money. I just think it's one of those things where I wonder how much of the new generation has kids. How many of them, even if you do have kids, how long are you going to be able to be a parent that can provide if you're dependent on whatever the outcome of a sports game is? And so it's a much more complicated experience because it's like it's a casino in your pocket 24 hours a day, and it's a silent thing until it's not silent. So I just anyone going through it. I mean, I wonder how often, how easy it is to have a family and kids and go on dates and meet women and do those things. And so, yeah, it's a new world we have to attack.
Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to touch up on something on topic, um, and just a thought I had I've been having around gambling addiction, particularly sports addiction. I think a lot of us think about it as preventive, you know, um, preventing something from happening, from to be able to gamble, et cetera. And I think that actually works against the addict because when we're prevented from doing something, we effectively want to do it more. No one wants to be restricted from doing anything in life. And the way we work our minds is whenever something is preventative, it's like, okay, like I'm going to get through it or I don't want this. So I think the way to look at it in the context is, here's the truth from my lens is we'll never be able to prevent um, gamblers from gambling just because of the behemoth of what we're dealing with of the gambling industry, the trends from prediction markets to the amount that's lobbying, the spending, the ads, et cetera. So I think the way I looked at it is really the recovery. So it's like post the gambling problem, being so damn good at recovery, where when people fall, we're here or people are here to pick them back up, and realizing that um, the nature of a gambling addiction, nobody wants to be labeled an addict. No one wants to admit to themselves, but realizing that it's norm now. What this society has created is normalizing gambling addiction, right? So it's about being so good, so capable of recovery that it becomes easier, it becomes cool again, like Dan said. And I think that's where I see where we can really focus and win. And I think that's an interesting point to really kind of flip it on its head and not try to um, fight against the preventative, but actually be the solution. And I think that's something that I've been thinking about a lot.
Yeah, I think that there's, if you tend to root for the underdog, we are the underdog, the behemoth of the gambling industry. There's so many lobbyists, there's so much ethical, questions about, what it is and profits before people. We're on the right side of this, and it's going to exist. This is going to be a fight, and gambling addiction is going to grow. We're developing thousands today as a result of the Knicks win and prediction markets. It really just dawned on me for the first time. I mean, I've known the enormity of prediction markets and the fact that basically sports betting is legal in 50 states and they just clip the age to entry from 21 to 18 for everybody. Just the enormity of that just hit me this week. I've known it, but now I feel kind of like when I realized that COVID was a thing, it was that big this week. Wow, getting more calls. Everyone's betting on Kalshi more than Polymarket. I guess you can siphon the money in a little more easily with credit cards, but Kalshi is huge, and 18-year-olds are betting at just a huge rate, and it's a public health crisis.
I
It's
think it's
real
something really
serious.
important to note as well. Sorry, Ted, if I did I cut you off?
No.
Okay. That really intelligent people as well. I mean, we're getting calls, people betting on Kalshi, and I know you have recently, Dan, experienced somebody whose life has been destroyed, and a very intelligent individual too. Just lo losing everything because you've got to understand the nature of this. It's not about not
Yeah.
being, it's like it really gets the best of us.
Yeah, very talented people are compromised by, and in some ways their talent and their love of sports and numbers and probability and their desire for risk could, that could be used in a different way. But very talented, very bright young people are being affected by this. Yeah.
Kalshi sounds like a very healthy breakfast cereal, you know, but it could actually empty your bank account.
That's a good line, Bob.
I think it sounds like I'm going to say it, cow shit. I always call it cow shit. It's just my I don't mind. But it's yeah, it's just that's the sound my body wants to make. It's like the advertisements are gross. You see, was it Rob Minnick when Rob came on and we showed that advert because Rob did a podcast on how the advertising is like ridiculous. It makes people look stupid, the Cowshy adverts like, yay, let's go gamble. And they're all going into this big, like, dimension and they all cycle in a line and they're hypnotized. And they really are. And they're in a line. Did anyone see that advert? And they're all like
Yeah.
celebrating and they're all doing this and they're all driving off into the sunset and they don't know where they're going. They go into this big black hole and then you don't see them again. I think it was,
They publicize the dream worlds and they don't publicize the nightmares, you know. There's a thing online. I just saw it this morning. Going back to this New York Knicks thing, if you they make it sound like, oh my God, if you put $100 on the Knicks and you rolled it over every game, you would have won 24.4 million. 24.4 from, and then people see that and go, oh my God, you know, that it's, how about publicizing the people that are wiped out?
well, I think it's in Danny Funt's book, Everybody Loses. And I'm hoping to get Danny on here soon as well. That we're not just talking about a crisis with an epidemic with people just gambling or developing an addiction. Apparently, this is going to hurt our economy. And people are talking about that and nobody is listening, right? Like we should be talking about that too. It's going to hurt our economy. And what we're creating with is, by normalizing this so much is we're standing there. We've got a group of us that are saying, hey, be careful. This is what's going to happen. Prevention folk, right? And then a huge mass of people capitalizing on people, just like letting it happen as if it's okay. We're going to find out, right? And to your thing, yes, you made a really, like, it was interesting what your point was. Like, I don't think we're ever going to stop people gambling. No, we know that. People are going to still smoke, people are going to still drink, people are going to still gamble, the casinos are going to be there. But can we raise awareness, and should we? Yes. It is very important. And are we there as us here, as clinicians, as a team, and people in the chat here, I can, all around the nation, capturing the casualties of the industry? Yes, and we will be here. And it's just so important that we continue, sending this message that we're not going anywhere, right? That we have to shout very loudly, this is a problem. This is going to get worse. This is getting worse. Danny's getting calls every single day and they're just increasing. But yeah, Yiz, did you want to say anything else on your comment before? I was just saying, like, you made a really good point.
No, I agree with you. I think if we can even move, the ball just a little bit. For example, just getting the font that the disclaimers at the end and these tiny you know fonts. If you can even get that increase 2x, that's a win, right? So there's so many things that we can do that can help just a tiny percentage of people, and that's a win. And I think absolutely there's many things that we can still do. We're just scratching the surface from awareness perspective. I agree with that completely.
Absolutely. There's a movement. It's Rob Minnick and Matt Cousins, Gamband. There's a movement. Is it I'm forgetting at the moment, but I'll
Um,
definitely post next week.
Gamblingtruth.org.
Gambling, what is it?
Gambling Truth.
Gambling Truth. So we're working with all these groups and then parents standing together. Kim, but there's a group, there's Gambling Truth, which is headed up by Rob Minnick and his team to push for policy change in DC, right? To really change how we're advertising, to force the gambling industry to change how they're advertising, to not allow the industry to advertise to our children, which now they're not allowing in Australia. All right, we're not allowed to do that in the UK. Why are we doing that here? I wonder. But yeah, just by increasing the font size, little things that we can do. Um, and we're about, I don't know, does anyone want to predict how many years this is going to take, right? It doesn't scare me at all how many years we'll just, stay here and keep doing this and raising awareness.
Well,
But
we can't wait for the policy changes. We have to, take matters into our own hands now. That's what this Sunday project is all about, is encouraging people to look at themselves and to stop gambling and to pivot away from something that's so destructive. One person at people are in fact doing it. People do get well. People, do recover from problem gambling. And that's the message too.
one message from the crowd, one victory at a time. I love that. We don't name your names because we keep you anonymous. And then another important factor is the use of celebrities and influencers influencing our youth in college because they look up to these role models. So when athletes and entertainers are encouraging gambling, like and Bob, you talk about that often. You've got big feelings about that, about our celebrities.
Once you just the imagery, and you just have to paint real pictures. And I always, like I said a few weeks ago, these kids are putting money on an athlete hoping they're going to win the game, but for that athlete, it's just another Tuesday night, and they don't win or lose, they're getting paid, and people have to understand that, it just you're putting you it's not about the win or the loss anymore. It's just about continued activity, and that's the danger, and that's we have to just I remember I used to say to my dad would say, "Son, you can't win," and I said, "Dad, if you couldn't win, it wouldn't be there." That was my That was my now. If you couldn't win, it wouldn't be there.
Many people do not realize that athletes are exiting their careers early because they are tired of the threats. And this is what I was saying. Thank you for that comment about if you're an aspiring young person in college and you do track, right? And you've grown up doing track and you headed to the Olympics maybe, right? You're going to be put off because you're going to be feeling like you're a farm animal if you're an athlete and all you're there to receive someone's attack because you didn't they've lost their money over you, and this is what's happening to athletes. That's also in Danny Funt's book too. I know we're wrapping, but these messages are coming in thick and fast in the chat, and such good points today. um
Uh,
Go for it.
I think one of the things that's overlooked is a lot of these athletes are huge gambling addicts too. I read a book, I'm sure it's not factual. They were saying that after retirement, most NFL players, I think it was 70% file for bankruptcy. And obviously their lifestyle stops. But I think gambling, I had a friend recently, someone told me they moved to Vegas and they just been gambling on a binge after they retired. And even like Floyd Mayweather, he made $300 million in one night and he's basically claiming broke. And I remember I was seeing him, he used to post like first quarter bets of $30,000. So a lot of them are going bankrupt. Even when I worked with a prediction market, I worked with fantasy gaming. They would give these celebrities who would be promoting on their podcast fictional credits that they would potentially win money from, but almost all of them lost and just kept asking for more. So even they're getting paid in free bets. And so I think it's a unique field that like anyone's prone to it. And honestly, they're more likely, they probably like making the money from the athletes because that's bigger bets than even the kids, even though the kids are probably the ones that are more prone to ruin their life. And so it's a double-edged sword as far as getting athletes to promote, yet alone athletes are losing their money gambling when they're done playing because it keeps that competitive spirit alive.
Yeah, can you imagine being near bankrupt after having had such accomplishments on the field and gambling, and it just kind of your life is getting mired in gambling addiction, and then the contradiction of being in a position to promote gambling, too. So you're
Yeah.
promoting something that is destroying your life, and meanwhile, the pain of the loss of not being a professional athlete anymore is, you're processing that. Um, it's it's tough.
Yeah, and you can lose as much as you want. That's the weird thing about gambling. I mean, the person that has $200 and loses it is terrible, and I can't feed my family. The person that has $2 million is gambling and going, I can't feed my family. It's one of those things where it's not like it's a group like you can be a millionaire and still be broke if you like gambling.
Yeah, and then the access to money too. I mean, in the brick and mortar casinos, people would wait till 12:01 to get more money out of the ATM, just like jonesing to hit the ATM. Now with access to, high interest loans and credit cards, and you can do so much damage so quickly just on your phone. Um, it's so destructive. And we definitely need policy change to protect that, deposits into accounts and those safeguards too.
Mm.
And on the banks too.
Absolutely.
Banks. Yeah. um So I want to say a really big thank you to you, Yiz, for coming on today. So good to see you. Always happy to have you here. And you, Jared, and the team, Dan, Bob. Also, we have so many people in our audience today who work in the field, I'm aware, and we really want to encourage more of you, more of this. We're here every Sunday. We take a couple of weeks break off sometimes, but we're here every Sunday doing this. And we're all in different parts of this, and people have different, jobs and like RG and the NCPG, but we can't do this alone. We have to come together. There's no competition in this. We have to come together to get this message across. And America is a big nation with lots of different states and different rules, different tax breaks, and so much money, billions and billions being wagered out of people, vulnerable groups. And it's so good to have you guys in the chat today. and we really encourage you to come back. In fact, please reach out to me if you want to come on as a guest speaker. Would love to meet you, get to know you more. And also thanks to our regulars. We seem to be building a good fan base here at Stop Betting Sports, and we really appreciate you. Bob,
Well,
Dan,
you know, it's global, and a good example of that is World Cup that's going on right now. 48 countries participating. I can't even fathom the amount of money that is, they should change the name to World Emptier Cup.
and if anyone out there in the audience ever want to get one of these amazing SBS jackets, we would love to have you wear our jackets around because people say, "What is that?" And they scan the QR code and then they find us. And we are prevention, education, and we are motivation to not gamble on a Sunday and preferably not through the week. So please come back. See you soon. See you
Thanks,
next
Deb.
week. Thank you
We'll
guys.
see you
Have a
next
good rest
week.
of the Sunday. Enjoy your Sunday.
Thanks, Deb.
All right. Take care,
Take care,
guys.
everyone.
Bye, Jared. Bye,
Bye.
Bob.
Bye.